I was kind of embarrassed and ashamed to be a white American man. It's like, wow, we're the ones that cause all the trouble. There was a real awakening for me to realize, wow, if I hold hatred or malice towards myself and people like me, how can I really love the other species fully? That we are all indigenous somewhere to this sacred earth. We are all part of a culture that had to be tuned into the earth, had to be tuned into the water and the air and the sun, because that is what creates all of life, right?
How do you describe prayer?
It's aligning yourself with the flow of life in this moment, and saying, I am this earth, water, fire, and air, and spirit, and I am my ancestors, and I am here, and this is what I wish to manifest in my life. Curiosity is another big piece for me too, rather than, just feeling rigid in my beliefs or in my judgments, kind of separate their pure hearts from their actions too.
I look for that day where the tears flow freely.
I'm not ashamed of tears anymore. I cry for gratitude, I cry with grief, and I just allow them to flow. And it's honoring that water, honoring the water and honoring, my passion and my love.
Welcome to another episode of Potential Paradigms. So by this time, I don't need to remind you that we live in a world that's heavily polarized by narratives, and there are activists on each and every side. So the question then becomes, is it possible that there is a form of activism that is grounded in a single truth and perhaps grounded in love, harmony, and prayer? And I think that the guest of today's conversation embodies such a life. My friend Jeffrey Bearheart, Domogowski, is a lifelong activist, a community elder, a musician, and now shares his work with young children and seniors. So this conversation is really a story of his personal transformation and also the transformation of his activism. And I have to tell you, what really struck me about Jeffrey when I started to meet him in the community was his engagement in the community, but also his prayerful invocations. And I could really feel that his prayers were not just words, but were really something alive and embodied. So I hope that that his spirit touches you through this conversation. And if it does, please share it with your friends. Thank you.
I'm here today with Jeffrey Domogowski, my friend, also aka Bearheart. Welcome.
Thank you, Kanan. It's an honor to be here with you.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have been talking for some time, and we thought to have this conversation, and so finally it's happening. So maybe a good place to begin is what I've noticed about you, that you are, I see you as a community elder. When I hear you, your words are like prayer, and there is a deep touch of optimism in your words, and that always made me curious to get to know you. And we had a few shorter conversations, and we planted a seed for this conversation. So maybe we can start there. What is the source? Every time I see you, you're so optimistic, and I think the folks in the community notice that about you. And so what is the source of this optimism?
Yes. Well, I would just say it's the life force itself is the source of the optimism. It's like, I see, all the aspects of this human reality as I can, and some of those are heartbreaking, and many are heart-opening as well as heartbreaking, and I just feel like beyond and beneath that, and is that life force that has created everything from the beginning of time, and will continue to create everything till into the future as far as that goes, and so that's what I like to tap into, that part of it, and at the same time be in my human, mind and body and heart, and So it's like, yeah, it's like when I get overwhelmed, it's like, okay, the birds are singing. Oh, that reminds me of that life force that will be here forever and has been here forever. Or when I see the moon rise, like I'm going to go with friends tomorrow to see the moon rise, and that's been here. All of my ancestors have been watching that same moon, and it's like the earth, water, fire, and air. All those things that are at the base of life are going to be here and have been here, and so. It gives me optimism and an ecstasy in a way, and so I deal with the harder emotions and try to be as real as I can. But I also know that I've been inspired by others that have pointed me to those things that I'm speaking about too, and my own heart points me there. So I guess that would be what I would say to that question.
Yeah. So. Another thought that comes to me is maybe we should sketch whatever comes to you about your history a little bit, and some of the transitions that you have been with, to see if it is possible to see a trajectory of where you are today. So my understanding is that you have been involved with activism from quite a few decades, and but yeah, maybe to begin with, where would you like to start if you had to give a historical bio to us?
Yes, well, thank you. I was born in Middle America, to blue collar parents. Everyone I knew growing up was white, Polish, Catholic for the most part. Parents drank a bit too much, and on the left center side of things politically, and I always felt like, wow, these are my people. This is where I was born. These are my parents. This is my family. This is my school. But I always felt like, there's much more. There's much more for me that I am. That I'm not being told, given the full picture of who I am. And then after, my parents actually lost 3 boys before I was born. So I felt like that there was a bit of, just like that anxiety of, well, will this 4th boy, will he make it? And I do have an older sister that's 9 years older that is still alive. And but I feel like that, there was that, like, maybe some anxiety with my parents, and they never really spoke about my brothers that had passed. One was 8 years old, one 6 months, one a few days. And then through my school, early school years, I felt like I had a normal childhood, and then looking back, like, oh wow, yeah, my dad drank a lot. Oh yeah, my mom cried a lot about everything and was worried about everything. Oh, and then when I graduated high school, it's like, oh, what are you going to do with your life now, son? And so I felt parental pressure. And I joined the Coast Guard, and that was my coming of age. Boot camp, and just I've got a lot of stories about the Coast Guard. I won't go into those, but it was definitely a coming of age, and being called into my power, or not, and of course the military wants you to toe the line and act a certain way, look a certain way, show up when they say you need to show up and all that. So I was indoctrinated into that realm, and I kind of, did that. But I was also knew that I wasn't my career path. I stayed in for a little over 4 years, and that is also what brought me out to California, because I'm from Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio originally. And which was a great gift, because I love where I live now. And just speaking that, I want to honor the Pomo people whose land, whose colonized land we're on here, Southern Pomo and Coast Miwok, because I'm also, part of my activism is honoring the Indigenous ones wherever I am as best as I can, and being an ally, seen as an ally. So coming out to California, I was from the government from doing my time in the military. I got 4 years of college. So I did a lot of, natural history, nature, natural science classes and some music classes and things. And just fell in love with the earth, to a certain degree, doing those classes and meeting people and meeting alternative people. And seeing that there was another way to live than I had been shown growing up.
Oh, thank you for that. And so before we enter into that phase, did you enter the Coast Guard because of do you feel that it had something to do with the challenges of growing up where you grew up and the challenges in the family?
Yeah, it was just like, took some aptitude tests and said, you'd be a good electrician or you'd be, and nothing was like calling me. So I thought, well, I can go into this service and I don't have to kill anyone and I might, I can help people perhaps, because that's part of the Coast Guard's mission is to help people that are stranded out there and other things. I mean, there is a policing aspect of it, but I wasn't drawn into that. So I think that, it was just parental pressure to what was I going to do next, and I was, basically a middle of the road student throughout, grade school and high school. Never was really, it was just like, okay, I'll just do whatever, the bare minimum. And then I want to get out there and play with my friends and I want to do other things. And so, I wasn't scholarship material or anything like that for college, but so I think it was just parental pressure to do something. And also there was something in me that was drawing me to see more of the world, I guess, we could say, and to see what other options there were. And I saw the Coast Guard as one of those possible paths to see, ways of how I can move forward as a man in the world, a young man, and, not sure of who he was really in some ways and what I wanted to do.
Yeah. When you said that personal power, was that something like connecting with it or getting disconnected with it during the phase of Coast Guard? Which one was it, or was it both?
Well, yeah, I think in the military, there's a thing where either you're a lifer or a short timer, right? You're either counting your days till you're out, or you're dedicating your life to the service. And I was in the short timer, a part of that equation because, I just didn't feel like it was my true being, my true essence, that my true gifts could be shared, on that path in the Coast Guard or the military. And so that's, and yet, I was gifted again, this college years, and I'm still pre-medical, and there was a lot of gifts that came from that, and there was also a lot of challenges. I was a shy boy back, growing up, and even into the Coast Guard, and was, it's a bit of a dark part of it. Was I was, people fingered me for being a narc and a thief, which I was neither, but I didn't have the social skills to know how to deal with, so I just closed down even more, and I would be threatened and I wish I had the tools now so we could uncover who the true thief and a narc were, but
and a narc, I'm assuming, is someone who's reporting
people for doing drugs, and of course it was other men that were perpetrating this, so it really instilled a deep mistrust of males in my life. It's like, wow, these guys are making me something I'm not, and making me this dark being, and wow, doesn't feel good. And so
is this a particular phase of in the United States when this term of narc came about?
This was the mid late 70s, and truth be told, we would smoke marijuana, me and my friends, and I never got the urine test to get tested, but That was my first base where all that negative stuff went down in New Jersey, and then when I went to school to learn how to work on airplanes and came to California, all that was left behind, thankfully. So that was, but the first year plus was was a challenging thing for a young man, leaving home for the first time and having to face that, as well as leaving family and leaving the familiar things behind, and trying to come into my power and to be squashed with that energy was very hard, and it took me a long time, and I still have mistrust that I see coming up, and I have to remind myself that that was then, this is now,
And did you travel a lot during the Coast Guard?
Not so much. No. I was again, I went to boot camp in New Jersey and stayed in New Jersey at a small boat station, and then went to Tennessee for aviation structural mechanic, basically working on patches and hydraulic systems and pneumatic systems in the airplanes, and then came out to San Francisco, and then we moved our fixed wing aircraft to Sacramento. So New Jersey and then California, and I did out my duty, my time in the Coast Guard here in California, Northern California.
And that's what inspired you then to go back to school.
Yeah. I had this free, 4 years of college, and even then I was, it's like I worked on firefighting planes because I had the airplane mechanic background, and but after I worked one summer on the firefighting airplanes, and I was like, oh, this is a glorified grease monkey. I don't think this is really me. That I want to do. There's more. There's something different. That is my path. And so going to school, again, took the natural science classes, and nature was a real draw, and music. And then also I got into my first activism. Going to junior college, I met a man who was at a table, Students Against Nuclear Energy. And it's like, oh, what's this about? And we became friends. And he's actually gave me my first alternate name, White Bear. He's part Cherokee and came to me in a dream. There's a whole story around that part. And then just kind of learned about, there's, more to the American way of life than what I've been shown so far. And, people are questioning, our ways, and people are questioning, is this healthy for the earth? Is this healthy for us? Is, the American way of life. So it was really, kind of my beginning of activism was back in 1983, basically 40 plus years ago.
Yeah. I know that in our previous conversations for both of us, we have talked a little bit about the importance of dream and the importance of that dimension to receive messages and deeper intuitions. In this case, you just mentioned that you had a dream about this gentleman that you met. Did you, if you feel comfortable, do you want to give us a sketch?
Well, actually, he had the dream.
Oh, he had the dream. Okay.
He had the dream, and this came up to me one day, said, I had this dream came to me, and Great Spirit spoke to me in the dream, said you're of the White Bear clan, and may I call you White Bear? And I was still kind of emerging from the mainstream model of things, and it's like, well, okay, I'll try something new, and but I didn't know that much about Native culture at that point, and so I actually took some anthropology classes, and was actually invited to a sweat lodge at some point with my friend. His name is Forrest, and so started learning about Native spirituality, and the symbolism of the white being in many cultures the place of the north, the place of wisdom, and the bear, the animal of the west, the place of introspection. So it's like I started realizing, it's a place, it's teaching me to look within myself for wisdom more than always looking outside of myself for, what, my for wisdom or what is, true in the world, but that, this body here is also a receiver of wisdom and to look in here rather than always outside. And so I actually went to visit him. Give or take a year later, he was doing peregrine falcon reintroduction in the Grand Tetons with a partner, where they would take these baby peregrine falcon chicks up to it was called a hack box, basically a man-made nest that was a box, and feed them the babies. They would feed them quail, and so they were away feeding the chicks one day, and I was alone on the mountain and had a vision of the white bear. Basically, it was me. It was just clear as a bell, and I was not altered, other than being in this incredibly beautiful nature place on the mountainside. With I can still kind of close my eyes and see the wildflowers on the path up to where they were, and smell the smells and see just this incredible nature scene. And so basically, it was me. I was me in white bear robes and regalia and the bear teeth necklaces, but just clear as I'm looking at you right now, as I was looking at myself. And so it's like, okay, there's more to this than my friend Forrest's, just my friend's Forrest vision. And so I claimed the name to a deeper level at that point, knowing that I am European and not indigenous to the Americas, and so that was to hold it without not wanting to dishonor any of the native ways or misappropriate.
Yeah,
but
I'm curious to hear you said that you took a dive into anthropology, and I'm wondering, because I know you have been involved with Native people. You use the word as an ally, and from what you're sharing, when you were reading that or just looking historically, do you think that it was a good reflection of what you saw? Because often a lot of people study anthropology, but they might not be sitting in a sweat lodge or be rescuing falcons. What would you say? Do you think that there is an accurate anthropological representation, or any comments on that?
You mean like in the classes I took and things like that?
Or stuff that you read. And it comes from my own curiosity, because oftentimes, also coming from the Indian continent, and being in the academic circles, that was my source of information. But as I became to dive deeper in my later years, I'm surprised how cultural misappropriation or colonial mindset, or just very materialistic mindset, has been used to that lens has been used to collect data, which is per se is not bad, right. But it's a limit, sometimes a limiting lens, and misses out a lot of information. So sometimes these days, what is becoming popular is this alternate anthropology and alternate history, which gives me joy, because in the past, if you said some of those things in your anthropology department, you lose your tenure or your position. So I'm just wondering if you made any such observations.
Well, I'll say back then I was innocent, and curious, and I also always felt like I could tell when someone is coming from a place of integrity and a place of wanting to do what's best in everything they do. And so I think that I can read that in people, and I'm drawn to those people, and that even though I knew there was all these stories and the horrific, the colonization theme is just like, I could start crying right now thinking about it, because it's, it continues to this day, right? But I also feel like it's tied in that we are all indigenous somewhere to this sacred earth. We are all, We were all a part of a culture that had to be tuned into the earth, had to be tuned into the water and the air and the sun, because that is what creates all of life, right? And back in the day, it was so much more obvious, rather than now we sitting in these rooms with the air conditioner on, and all these things were removed, and we have all this modern human stuff that and we create all this. But so I just thinking back, I feel like learning some of the Native American pieces through anthropology was kind of pointing me to my own indigeneity to this earth. Even though my ancestors are from Poland, and they may have done things differently, but there was still that connection to the earth that our survival depended on, that inspired us. I'm sure, in everything we did, and so yeah, I don't know, kind of a round way of answering your question, but
no, this is beautiful. That's what it triggered in you as well, and maybe that is what it triggered in me as well. I just don't remember back in school, but it was a very interesting subject to know about history. But oftentimes there's this representation of, we are at the pinnacle of our development, and here is information about the primitive society. And what's happening now is that actually history is becoming more and more older. It just keeps getting older. As a quick sidebar, I recently read an article, and actually I think it was a New Scientist magazine, which is an old publication, and it was about the Amazon. That's what piqued my interest, and I just started looking at it. And what they said is that they were doing these radar and LiDAR scans on the Amazonian forests, and what they discovered was entire cities, villages that were for millions of people.
Wow.
And that is counter to the anthropological study up to this point. So that's a revision by anthropologists based on this new technology. However, the indigenous peoples of the Amazon would say, their elders would say, that historically we used to have these giant, you could say cities, not a village, because there are 1 million plus people, and living in the forest. And they had a word for it. They were calling it the garden cities, which is a new concept that's being introduced. However, they had sort of figured that out, or they had their own way of doing that. So anyways, it just corroborates what the natives were saying, but it was sort of dismissed that it was not possible that there would be these relatively massive cities or giant villages network in the Amazon. So it's a revision of anthropology based on technology, of these radar scans which show these structures. Anyways, it's so fascinating. So walk us over. So your continuation after the Coast Guard, you went back to school, fell in love with nature, had this sort of spiritual awakening, if I may use the word, or the beginning of discovering your indigenous roots. And then what happened?
Yes, I feel like it's an incremental thing. I mean, there are revelations, and there are big moments where we discover really who we are. I mean, I feel like that's what life is about. We keep discovering new facets of who we are, and new deeper connections to the rest of life, and then how to live from there. After I got my AA degree, and then I went to Sonoma State, and I took wilderness psychology class. It was recommended to me by a friend who had taken it, and I took it a couple times, actually, and it was basically a class where you became a tribe. The class became kind of like a tribe, and just got to trust each other, and we would meditate every morning and sing chants, beautiful, earth-loving chants and spiritual chants and things. And then at the end of the semester, we would go on a 2 or 3 week wilderness trip together with our teacher, and so we would take in as little culture as possible. It would be just what we needed to survive, a tarp, and the food we needed for, the 2 weeks, and no journals, no flashlights. There was, one person had an emergency flashlight and a first aid kit, but other than that, it was just us and the wilderness. And to me, that was a big piece for me in discovering, the deeper sense of who I was. I can actually remember walking along the trail one day and falling to my knees, just say, this is who I am. This wildness, this beauty, this untamed yet, creates everything. Everything's been created, and in this way, and at the end of those trips, it was like I felt the strongest and the clearest I ever have in my life. Because it was, again, just a sense of the deep connection to Gaia, to this beautiful river that we got to swim in every day and sit around the fire every evening and share the same meal of lentils and rice with everyone, and it was just more delicious every night, and just returning to that place, and and it was always the pace of the group was to the slowest person, because we were in this together, right, and it was survival, too, because we didn't have maps. I mean, our leader knew where they were going, but the rest of us were trusting that we were being guided in a good way, and I never questioned, when we would separate into men's and women's camp. Anyway, there's a whole thing around that, and then we would go up to Sacred Mountain and camp at the base of the mountain, and then go up to watch the sunrise at the top of the mountain, and get our water from the streams and the springs, and very rich. And I actually, I took a class 3 times at that. Then I co-led a couple classes after our teacher retired, with a couple friends, co-led the class. So it just felt like such a deep gift that I wanted to pass it on to others too.
That sounds spectacular.
Yeah.
How did that come into the curriculum? What was inspired by? Do you know?
Well, I think it was, Sonoma State was when it first came about. It was all about psychology. Psychology was its, main purpose, and so I just feel like there were different avenues of that, the transpersonal psychology, and then things that were born afterwards, like eco-psychology and this wilderness psychology. So I think it was just those free thinkers back then that had, were supported by the university system to create classes that they felt were, valuable for society, valuable for the students, and so I'm really grateful, that I got to step into that, in that time. And I even checked back to see if that class is still happening or not. But now you're making me curious. But I know there are lots of wilderness schools and people taking, guiding people out and on vision quests and all that. Still, but so I think, it's great that it was a mainstream, supported by the mainstream university system.
Yeah, and. Where does that leave us in the arc next?
Yeah, well, my activism, was informed by that, and also my friend Forrest, who part Cherokee man who gave me the name White Bear, was also a musician, so we would do music together, and eventually decided to start a band. And the name of our band was the Ecotones. And we had quite a following. So that was, in my college years, and there was a few other people in the band, and we had themes of environment, and we weren't. It wasn't music for music's sake, but it was music for social change, for environmental awareness, and for the joy of sharing song too. My first song was that I wrote is called "No Boundaries," and we're all a part of the wonder from the earth beyond the stars. There are no frames, no boundaries. The universe is ours. So that was the first song that I wrote. And actually, I had to write that for a class. I didn't think I was a songwriter until, I have to write this song to pass this class. Okay. Just so the music piece came in too. And also that was really supported in the wilderness class, because our teacher was also a singer, songwriter, and we would sit around the fire chanting with our rattles and other things too. So, and I've always loved to sing. I mean, I haven't mentioned that yet, but I was in church choir growing up. My mother loved to hear me. She was always encouraging me to sing to her. So that's another big piece of who I was from very early on. That it was interesting though. Growing up, none of my friends were really singers or musicians. So it was, once I got out of the Coast Guard, I met friends that were musicians like Forrest and others. And instead of sitting in front of the TV like I'd, done previously, we would sing songs and share music and so that was,
It was a reigniting of a gift that you had early on.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and my mom, wanted me to, she gave me a guitar when I was 9 and gave me guitar lessons, but none of my friends played, so I didn't really stick with it. But I would just sing. I would just, walking home to school by myself, I'd be singing. It was something that was just a part of me. That joy of song, and I do it for a living now, sharing music with children and folks elder than me, and in ceremonies and other venues, but even just again when I'm walking around, it's like I'm singing to myself, or in the grocery store, and there's always, and I feel like it's I mean, you mentioned prayer early on. It's like I feel like our lives are prayers, and song is a prayer, and this conversation is a prayer in a way, because it's like when you ask me to do this, it's like, okay, well, even if this touches one person, or inspires one person to deepen into the truth of who we are as humans in this life, then it's worth it, because. I feel like, the mainstream culture is kind of pointing us in other directions and wants to keep us disempowered in some ways, because, it's like, and so that's part of my mission too, is to remind myself and others, what is the true wealth of this life, It's not that number on your bank account, that's something we have to do because we're in this capitalist system, but the true wealth is so far beyond that, and it's been here forever. And as long as I have a voice to use, I'm going to use it. And whether it's in song or prayer or, holding my sign at at a peace rally, or in support of the environment, then I'm going to use it, and because it's it comes from my heart. And it's, I think another piece I should mention is I was kind of embarrassed and ashamed to be a white American man. It's like, wow, we're the ones that cause all the trouble, and so there was a real awakening for me to realize, wow, if I hold hatred or malice towards myself and people like me. How can I really love the other species fully? So there was a point, in my college years, where like, wow, I don't want to hold this anger anymore. It's not serving me, and or at least to move the anger in a positive direction, in a way that's going to help rather than cause more division. So that was a big part of my evolution as an activist, to forgive myself. It's so it's like I'm a white American man, and wow, what privilege that I have with that too. So how can I use this privilege in a way that helps all beings, and isn't just for my wealth on this, again, in the capitalist way, but in the greater sense of helping out all beings. So.
Yeah, I like that. I think that each moment, if you become open, there's a lot of possibility, and if you're attached to some kind of a narrative, it actually limits the freshness and the infinite possibilities that might be available. Mm-hmm. And right now, with the political and all kinds of polarizations, it's sometimes easy to take strong sides of who's being oppressed and who's the oppressor, and I think that has value. But if we take very strong positions, then we get locked into a cycle, which I don't think that approach has the potential to break the cycle. But as you said beautifully, that whatever privilege or position we have, if from that very point we see what the possibility is and use that as resource, then I think then that's how we can potentially break the cycle.
Yes, thank you for that, Kanan. Yeah, right. And it's as I mentioned, growing up, everybody I knew was white Polish Catholic. I joined the Coast Guard, and wow, look at all these different people, and this person of color wants to fight me, and so there, anyway. And now it's like, wow, diversity is one of nature's strengths, and I got this person of color in my life. How beautiful! What a gift it is to have you in my life, Kanan, and other people that are different than me. Wow, how beautiful! And I have plenty of friends that are like me too. Look similar to me, but it's such a gift to coming up from that perspective. Oh well, in this life you look a little different, but really, we all come from that. The earth, water, and the fire, and the air, and wow, how beautiful that how many ancestors before you brought you to this moment, brought me to this moment. I'm wearing these Polish amber beads my friend brought back from Poland. It helps me think about my ancestors, and I'm wearing this hat that my friend Michael passed away 12 years ago, so I'm wearing the hat of an ancestor, and the raven feather in the hat, and just reminders for me that we are here on this cutting edge of human evolution, right? We get to be on the leading edge of it. But what has been before that is just like all these ancestors that have given everything of themselves so we could be here, So I also like to think about that, and how I'm honoring all those that came before me, that brought me here and brought you here. And wow, can you imagine the infinite stories of ancestors and my ancestors, and all the people that are alive right now, and what a gift that we get to be here together, and for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you are connecting to the elements, because I feel like oftentimes, because you've been in activism, and these days it's easy to become riled up with our political atmosphere right now, or any kind of activist stance. And I find that oftentimes the media portrays as though we have figured out who the culprit is, who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed. And as I was saying, that has value indeed, but that per se is not the solution, right? And from what you were alluding to, this connection with nature and ancestors and the elements also being perhaps the primordial ancestors, which are also always ever present within us and outside of us.
Yes.
I think this lack of context, when this context is absent of what our human journey, what is the true arc of it? Is it from the point that I was born in a certain family till I die? I mean, most of humanity are not even in touch with the second half, which is you do die. But even if that's still a limited context. And I feel like the more broader context we have, then it's hard to get attached to a race or a color, because the context is so cosmic. Why limit yourself? Right. So I appreciate that that you brought that even yesterday when you were having a pre-interview conversation, that makes your activism very light.
Thank you. Yes, and it's we complicate things so much as humans, and we have this wonderful prefrontal cortex that just has so much power and thinks of infinite possibilities, right? And what really serves, it's like so. I mean, I start most of my days with honoring the elements, just breaking it down to the simplest of the simple. Wow, I get to breathe this air that connects me to all the plants in this forest I live in, and has been on the same molecules of oxygen that have been passing through for millions and billions of years, right? And the water that fell during the winter is still keeping the plants growing, and I can still turn on my tap. And so and the sun, of course, our beautiful star, just like wow, just giving, and the earth, wow, and it's all, to me, it's all pure love, right? In those elemental forms, and we are made of that pure love, And so, how can I take that pure love that has given me and give it back to life? Because it's it doesn't ask for anything back. The sun doesn't say, oh, you used to, you have this beautiful tan, you owe me $500 or whatever it is. It's like, or the earth doesn't say, oh, everything that you eat is from me, you owe me. No, the earth, all these things are just freely given. And so I think that's, in some ways maybe like the first form of love, right? Is those elements that just give to us and have given to all of our ancestors. Again, and will give to all future generations, regardless, if you're, a Democrat or Republican or, communist or socialist or whatever you are, it's like, so it's, and that gives me solace too. It's just like, okay, this is going to be here, whatever we humans do. Yes, there are bombs falling. Yes, there are species going extinct. That breaks my heart. Yes. But, what's really running life beyond our human, and including our human realm, and so it's, that gives me solace and hope. And it's part of my positive, outlook. And I feel anger, and I feel depression, and I feel, grief for things too. But it's, if we choose, we get to have the full human experience, and that's what I want. I want to, experience it all, and I just trust that, my heart is infinitely resilient, and all of our hearts are. And so that's another piece for me, that I can feel really deeply, and things that are really challenging. But I also know that I am so supported in all of it, all of the hardest challenges.
Yeah, maybe on that note, I'm in such a deep felt terrain of what you're sharing. And a question that perhaps comes to me linked to that is, so you have been an activist, and my feeling is that it has had phases of this transformation, of this lightness, particularly your activism for Mother Earth. As you look back, is it an optimistic picture? Do you feel like, or is it somewhat disappointing to see what you had set to do, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, and where we find ourselves today.
Well, just the word paradox comes into mind, right? Because it's like, I hope, many of us hold this vision of utopia in a way, right? And it's like, is that really realistic? So it's like, I try to remember, I am a human, and I know this much of what's really happening in the broader sense of things and in other dimensions. Yes, we have this, this seen world, this world that's I can sense with my body, with my five senses, but there's so much more going on, in the unseen too. So it's like, trust. Trust also comes to me. It's like there, and trust in that life force that I talk about. Trust in those elements. Trust in my infinitely resilient heart. Your infinitely resilient heart. And even those that I think 80 degrees opposite from, politically or otherwise, they are our relatives too. And they have this beautiful heart, pure heart too, and it's like, we get to dance our dances, and some of us are killing each other, and some of us are, using as many of the resources as we can in every moment, and not even thinking twice about it. And some of us are, like Tibetan monks I saw last week, and they have 2 changes of robes and 1 bowl, and at their monastery they have 2 cars for 1,000 monks to share, and. All right, well, wow, what a diverse species we are, and how we show up. And, curiosity is another big piece for me too, rather than, just feeling rigid in my beliefs or in my judgments, but to try to move to the place of curiosity of, wow, that person thinks so much differently than me and acts so much differently and does this thing that seems like it's really, not helping us evolve in a healthy way, and to kind of separate their pure hearts from their actions too. That's something I learned at a Biodeers conference, right? It's a panel of women. And separate, the action of the person from who they are at their essence, of this pure being that, is doing their best, and their best is different than what I think my best is. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult subject in a way, but you mentioned curiosity, and there's so much going on, right? It's, as humans, I think you earlier you were saying the frontal cortex, and I've heard from a spiritual teacher in the past that humans struggle with their capacity, their capability that nature has given them. So it's really our capacity that we're not able to master and use it, but it becomes problematic. It makes us suffer, that very frontal cortex, so to speak. I find some solace in that there is so much more going on. We just have to sometimes raise our heads up, and there might be galaxies and supernovas exploding, and who knows how many trillions of planets and species and whatnot. It brings a certain humility and context to the vastness, and maybe our weight becomes a little lighter. The challenge is that a lot of humans are also not interested in widening this context, and I feel like maybe that is also part of nature. Is in certain traditions, it's the levels of evolution cannot be forced, right? Grace and nature brings that. It's a puzzle, and I'm bringing this to maybe ask you a question, because I found this in myself recently. I was involved, as you know, both of us are in ways. I was feeling a lot of sort of grief and other mixed emotions about the Palestine and Israel conflict. And as I was opening myself up to hearing all sides of the story, or as many as possible, as I shared with you earlier, I didn't feel that taking this side or that side, of course, that has value to make decisions in the moment, but that's not really a solution, because it feels like history is just full of polarity, who's the oppressor, who's the oppressed. But really, I had to come to the humility that I don't know why I get to have the privilege and not be in a war zone, right? And also not know what is the best action. And somehow I feel like there is grace that I didn't go to a very sort of dark place and just cry when I need to, and just trust, as you were saying, trust that there is just a lot bigger movement happening. And I guess the question I want to pose you is, what is the balance if one has a choice of, if I had a choice, I would stay connected to curiosity and optimism and trust. And I feel that is the only place through which I can actually take decisive action, even if that is to go to war or to rescue someone. But if I'm not in touch with that trust, then I doubt that any kind of action would actually bear any good fruit. So I guess I'm also, with that reflection, posing that question to you: how do you address this within yourself? All the challenges.
Yeah, I think part of it is I feel inspired by even the hardest things. It's just like, okay, I can let this take me down. How many are dying right now in war? How many species? Or I could say, wow, I have this life. I have this, and this passion and this love. I want to do something with it that's going to make a difference, even if it's the tiniest of things. I'm going to sing with this child and point them to the earth, point them to these elements. I'm going to stand at this peace vigil without choosing sides, but I'm going to pray for peace for all beings. I'm going to honor my ancestors. I can only imagine, some of the hardships they went through, and so it's like and again, the other piece is like, I feel so gifted. I get to sit here with my brother Kanan here, and I get to go hike and watch the full moon tomorrow with friends rising. I get to put good food into my body. Wow, just all those gifts. So all those gifts, I get to breathe in clean air without smoke without smoke right now. So it's like, yeah, it's like life is inspiring me in every moment if I choose that, and there are moments where I'm feeling the despair. I'm feeling like nothing matters. I mean, what can I do? I'm one person. I don't have billions of dollars. I don't have any political pull, but what I do have is the gifts I've been given by Creator. And am I going to, deny Creator giving back my gifts because I judge myself as not being powerful enough to give anything back? Or am I going to take what I have and say, yes, here I am, evolving myself as best as I can and encouraging my species to evolve in the best way that I can? And so it's in some ways it feels selfish, because it's like, well, am I fooling myself? Well, I don't know. Maybe I am. And, it's like we all, but I also, it's again, just being in touch with one's heart, right? Being in touch with one's heart. And you see my tears, and it's like, I'm not ashamed of tears anymore. I cry for gratitude. I cry with grief, and I just allow them to flow. And it's honoring that water, honoring the water and honoring, my passion and my love. So, I just feel like and and the older I get, you mentioned me being an elder earlier, and it's like, I still feel like I'm kind of an elder in training, and in some ways it's like I also feel like we're all 13.8 billion years old, like the rest of the universe. So we're all, we're all elders, and we all have that, that star memory, that cellular memory that, we're made of the same atoms that have been here since the beginning. So it's like, how to, I access that too. I feel like that is something that inspires me. I'm not a big reader. Oh, you should see all the books I have, but how many have I read from cover to cover? Oh, a handful, really. It's like my meditation teachers up north, it's called the Holy Book of Nature, right? It's like the Holy Book of Nature, wow, which is infinite. It's like every time I see a butterfly or gaze into your eyes, or, whatever it is, it's like that Holy Book of Nature is teaching me something. And am I present for the teaching, or am I, not present for it? And maybe I'll wake up to it another time. But it's so all these things, and so much more, right? And then getting to sing with the children and seeing those innocent, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds that are just like, so excited to sing songs with me, and I teach them songs about the earth, and I encourage them to sing songs from their hearts about what they're going through. Oh, are you sad today? Do you want to make up a song about that? I had a couple friends die last month, and I said, oh, I'm feeling sad about, so I modeled singing a song of sadness to them, and it's like all these parts that I feel like I was not shown as a child. I was not shown as a young adult even. It's like that I've discovered from teachers. I've discovered from the earth. I've discovered from the elements. I've discovered from, in my prayer times. I've discovered, in my loneliest times, when COVID, after I lost my last, romance, and, I was just totally alone. It's like, and curled up in a ball, crying some days, missing her and missing, a beloved, and my, not seeing my people as much as I was seeing them. And so I learned a lot, from being alone with my grief and my longing, which is with me every day and every moment right now. It's with me. But I feel like I'm more at choice with the things that I can engage with in most moments. I mean, I lose myself. I'm still learning, but it's also, wow, yeah, I feel generally like, and I live alone, so when I get around people, it lights me up. It's like, wow, I know that someone told me this, I'm not sure if it's true, but in Eskimo, the word for hello basically means hello, my other self. So how beautiful is that, right? Whether it's a person or a tree or the breeze, hello, my other self. So it's, we're all in this together, and what a gift, what a gift. So.
Yeah, it's the other self. It's interesting is because we're reflecting, right? We're much of what goes within us is in reference to what we are being reflected. Right. That's something that I'm becoming more and more aware of. But I used to think a lot of what was coming through me directly. But we're building each other together in mysterious ways, and in a way that gives more. It's empowering in a way because we can choose how we reflect others, and who knows what that one smile or a tear, how far that effect goes down.
Yes.
Your transformation is remarkable. I look for that day where the tears flow freely, and that I feel so deeply. I've made quite a bit of progress, but there's a lot of room for growth there, of the opening of the heart. So thank you for being shining that way, for being a role model for us. Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey.
You're so very welcome. Yeah, I'm honored. Yeah, my father died when I was 33, and I couldn't cry. I was very sad, obviously. And I'm not actually sure when the dam burst, but yeah, as you can see now, it's like, oh, tears of gratitude, tears of grief. They just flow out. I was at the men's gym. I was in the men's locker room, and there was some bombing, and I started crying in the men's locker room. And one of my friends, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm like, oh, please, brother, let me have my tears, let me have my grief. And part of me, sees the younger men in there and wants to model that, because I am strong and I am powerful, and they see me as an elder. I'm lifting, quite a bit for my age, and I love having this strong body that is still strong, and I know how to push it to just enough where I'm not going to hurt myself, but I can. So thank you, Creator. Thank you, Earth, Water, Fire, and Air, for this strong body. And thank you to all those farmers that make that, that grow that food that I get to put in this body to help make it strong too. And thank you for the prayers. And thank you for people in my life that inspire me, like you and others that are just, wow, I want to stay strong, because my community is strong, of all beings. And as long as I have this life, to give back in the best way that I can, from a place of strength and love and caring and compassion and, all those things, and joy. And joy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's remarkable. You earlier were mentioning that you said you consider yourself an elder in training, and that you are, but then you went on to say that we're all 13.8 billion years old. And the thought occurred to me is it would be wonderful if that became our age. You are 13.8 billion years plus 1 year old, right? Just to inspire us to remember in our cultural narrative.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in our psychological drama that we become oblivious to what's around us, what's above us, and what's within us, all the elements, as you're saying. Really, I feel like that's where the solutions lie of that awareness. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you, how do you describe prayer? Because, you've mentioned it here and there, but if you had to coalesce, just because it's for me and also for whomever might hear this. Because one time, somebody had asked me that question, actually. I think it was my dad. Because I was praying and I was like, oh, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I think not so much to get in the head, but I felt that asking myself that question at different points has clarified and directed how I can get deeper into that process. So, on to you.
Thank you. I love that question, and I was raised Catholic. I learned a certain way to pray. I was an altar boy, got kicked out of altar boys, but I'm really grateful for the sense of ritual that it instilled with me, even though the rituals I do now are not Christian based. It's just like going to church every week there was a sacredness that I felt, so now to me prayer is, I would say it's basically aligning yourself and your thoughts with the flow of the universe in the moment. Again, it's it doesn't matter what you call yourself, Buddhist or whatever. It's aligning yourself with the flow of life in this moment, and saying, I am this earth, water, fire, and air, and spirit, and I am my ancestors, and I am here, and this is what I wish to manifest in my life, not just for me, but for the highest good of all beings, right? So I think prayer is, you can be an atheist and pray, because it's about the physical, again, the elements and what's been and what is coming too. It's like, because what we're giving is the future generations are going to receive too. So it's like this, one of my phrases is forever now. So I feel like it puts me into a place of forever now, and I'm calling for something that, that I can embody, and it's not just, oh God, it's like it, and again, it's all, to me, it's also that we're all a little godlings, or little, specks of creation. If you're an atheist, we don't have to use the word God. We have this creative life force within us, that is connected to everything, and we are so supported, by all that is, if we choose that. And it's easier for me to say, if there's someone, in Gaza or Ukraine that bombs are falling now. I mean, they might see things differently, but I also feel like we all have that. And there's also, anyway, so it's, prayer is such a beautiful thing. And, and I think also words, right? We get attached to certain ideas of what this word means or that word means, but I think it was Eckhart Tolle says the words are pointers to something. I mean, you are not Kanan. I am not Jeffrey Bearheart Domogowski. Those are words. What, we are infinite beings connected to the infinite source of life, that, infinite love, and to the elements. And, we have all this, infinite potential to, and, as your podcast, we are creating the new paradigm, whether to bring more, more consciousness to that, the better it will be for us and for all beings, right? So thank you for your commitment to that. And because we're in co-creation with the rest of life. And so prayer is honoring that co-creation and saying, yes, I feel this power, this love, I feel this life force, I feel this energy that, is everything in literal and figuratively, and so it's like, what do I want to create with this? What do I want to create with this? And I must say, I have a lot of beauty in my life, a lot of loving connections in my life, and I take credit. The only thing I take credit for is that I continue to allow myself to open to receiving and to building upon what I know is true in my heart, without attaching to any certain outcomes of it. And it shows, it bears fruit every day for me, my prayers.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that very prayerful description of prayer. I love how you sort of defined it, of this connection with the vastness. I think belief hinders that, because then you've already decided. And I don't know if a true atheist, if there is such a thing, can pray, because I think, well, because I was one. I don't know if I was a true atheist, but I was always agnostic. I think I was an agnostic atheist. So there is still that idea that I don't know, and it is big. But if I decide there isn't no bigger reality, then how does one pray? By the moment you pray, you're not an atheist anymore. It's a paradox. I don't know if anyone really is 100% atheist.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder.
Yeah, beautiful. So in your current day-to-day, what's inspiring is that you are you spend time with children, right? You sing songs and invite them to make up their own songs, which is beautiful. And then you're also spending times at hospices and people at the end of their journey.
Yeah, elder care, Alzheimer facilities. Yes. Yeah.
Could you share maybe an anecdote or your experience with these two very different time points. One is at the beginning of life and the other is at the end. If you can make those demarcations.
Yes, right. Forever now. But no, it's I again the diversity, right? I mean, even with my band, it's like we didn't just do folk rock or reggae or or trance or funk. I liked to mix it up. I like to do a little bit of everything. So I really love having people in my life that are my much youngers and then those that are elder, and singing with the elders. It's like there's times where John left yesterday, and today I did an Alzheimer gig, and there's an elder man. His name is Paul, and he asks for Danny Boy every time, which is a song about honoring someone who's passing and feeling the love beyond the grave of that person. He asks for it every time, and whenever he asks, I have to do it. I have to do it, and I know there's gonna be one day, probably while I'm still here, that I'm going there and say, well, Paul left this morning or yesterday, and I'll sing Danny Boy for him, and the children, it's I feel like it's real. They inspire me so much because it's like it's my legacy for future of this planet, and I'm again pointing them to the elements, pointing them to the earth. I do a song with them. We're all a family under one sky. We're people, we're flowers, we're animals, we're the sun, we're the earth, we're the water. And they love it. They really get it. They really get it because they're in that place of their lives where they're just curious and wanting to learn. And they, also, they feel my love for them, my unconditional love for them, and my wanting what's best for them. And I tell them pretty much every class, each of your voices is needed in this world, and each of you has a different voice that's needed, and it's part of, your gift and a joy to hear your voice, each of your voices. And it's not about singing on key or, being in perfect timing. It's about sharing your voice from your heart, and so to me that it's. And I take in different instruments to them. I let them strum on my guitar. We do a lot of movement. Kids, they need movement. They need somatic. So I do a lot. A lot of different movement things with them, and they love doing the parade. I have a big basket of percussion instruments. They want to parade around the school. They want the other kids to see. We're doing a parade with our music teacher around the school, and we're singing, This Little Light of Mine or whatever. So, and I receive so much from them. I mean, I can be having a really hard day, and I go in and sing with the kids after a song or two. It's just like, it's medicine, and the medicine goes both ways. And I think that's another piece that, I want to share is that, it's like I receive medicine from you and from people in my life that I know are in their integrity and wanting what's best for me and best for all beings. And so it's like the kids get it. The kids really get it in their, in their innocent young way. And even the ones that are, it's not like every child is right there with me and doing everything I want. There's some that are like, hey, I'm going to distract class over here and do this. But, I'm planting seeds in them too, and I try to empower them. And also, it's not, and I appreciate those challenges too. Appreciate the ones that are testing my power and are coming into their power by testing my power as an adult. And so it's and I do love that. People coming into life, I'm singing with. People on their way out of life, I'm singing with. I love that juxtaposition of that. And there was a man who, let's say he was just politically opposite from me, but he would come in and visit his wife in the facility, and he would ask for these 3 songs to dance with her almost every time. And then there was one day where he said, hey, my wife is dying in her room. Can you come sing Amazing Grace? for us, you know. And so, anyways, it's like, you know, so it's like that. The music crosses all boundaries too, you know, all political, all, you know, religious boundaries. It's, you know, it's a joy that, I mean, everything's vibration, right? That energy, right? So it's like, you know, sound is a certain frequency. And so it's just like, when you add love to that frequency, when you add joy to that frequency, when you add, you know, acceptance of the others, sharing of how they share their voice, how they share their, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's fascinating. I had a couple of thoughts. Well, one was related. These children are blessed in a way. The kind of songs, very meaningful and prayerful songs that you were sharing with them. I remember that through media, of course, my introduction was through media, right? Through watching TV and cartoons and stuff like that. And some of the imprints that I have, which were spiritual at the time I didn't know, were there used to be, for example, this show called Captain Planet back when I was growing up, which was deeply touching and has become more meaningful for me because I've been using it more as a mythological connection now in my spiritual practice, because I know that as a kid it really touched me very deeply, although the adults around me and the culture were not, it was just had no significance, but that prayer touched me, that call to the five elements. And I think part of the opening song of that was the Mother Earth gives these five elements and they combine to form this Captain Planet, the protector. And when at the end of the song, Captain Planet disappears and the power goes back into the rings, each elemental power, and he says the power is yours. So very deep, deep mythology there.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's remarkable, I think, to have these truths in song being imparted to the kids, which are, as you use the word, seeds, because they really are. And I think if the environment is right, they just sprout faster. Right. Otherwise, they could take a lifetime and not come to become a sapling. And the other thing was, because I've been doing vocal music for the past 5-6 years, and my connection with music became activated through certain mantras in my tradition, which is very Muslim part of India, which is called Pakistan, Kashmir and Pakistan. And at the time they were imparted very dogmatically. They were just rote memorization and get beat if the pronunciation is not correct and stuff. And years later, when I had my spiritual sort of heart to open up, some of these vibrations came through. As you were saying, it's vibrational. And I became aware of a totally different dimension of these sounds that I hated as a kid, you know. And so I became interested in voice. And just to bring, 4 or 5 years of practice has brought me to that it's about opening the heart. It's a lot of the practice that I do, which seems like a very scholastic practice of, hit this note and hit that note. What's brought to me is, if I could begin from an open heart, the note is correct. The other is when the heart is closed and you're trying to use all these tools to somehow, get to that point where it flows.
Mm.
Yeah. So sometimes we're going the other way. Yeah. So if there is a reason, if there is a deep feeling, the note has to be right. I would say it doesn't matter then. Right?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, especially at that formative age, just to empower them and tell them that they're loved and their voice is needed. To me, that's everything. I wrote a little chant for them. I have a gift for you. You can't hold it in your hands. Mm. I have a gift for you. Please carry it in your heart. It's a gift of love and care for you, for who you are, to empower your voice, to speak and sing from your heart. So, that's my intention with them. It's just to empower them, to be able to share their voice from their heart.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so powerful what you said. Um, I think it's a completely unique perspective to look at our spiritual journey. I would say a part of our spiritual journey is activating our true voice, our true expression. And yeah, for me, that's what music, I'm seeing music, my musical training, I didn't know what it was about, but I see now it's more about that is, can I express myself? Can I find what is true that wants to express itself? Takes a long time, it looks like.
Well, yeah, yeah, and so many of us were, told, oh, maybe don't sing so loud, and oh, well, but just pretend like you're singing. Oh, it's like and I think part of that is our celebrity culture. It's like, oh, we compare ourselves to the best singers, to the best players, or whatever, and oh, I could never be that good. I better just like sing in the background a little bit, or in the shower, and forget about it. But to me, it's like, wow, let's bring our voices together, and please share your voice as it's yeah. So it's a. I think there is something to that piece of. It's part of who we are that if it's oppressed, and it shows up in other ways, and it shows up in dysfunctional ways. So to allow it to just flow, and I I am not perfect. I listen to some of my recordings sometimes, like, oh, I judge myself too. So it's like I'm still learning to even accept my own voice sometimes.
Mm. Mm.
But it's yeah. But those kids, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a maybe there is a place for practice and what you were just saying when you were recording the song. But other than that, we should just be singing songs.
Right. Yeah. Around the campfire, like our ancestors have been doing forever.
Right.
Might as well say forever, because
13.8 billion. Yeah, I think this idea of comparison is a very seductive, magnetic, and hypnotic. Yeah, if you can only remember that we're so old.
Right.
And we have a lot of time, or infinite time.
Indeed, yeah.
Then not to get into comparison. There's no shortage of attempts we can make to be who we are. Yeah, okay, so just out of curiosity, it just occurred to me as you were sharing, because you're familiar, have been studying, have been partaking in native elders and environments. What is the idea about the Great Spirit and this current of evolution, of creation? We see this evolutionary current. So what have you noticed, out of my own personal curiosity, how is this sort of paradox, if you will, expressed in Native American traditions? If you have seen that, you might not have seen that. And I only ask this because in my sort of spiritual study, a little bit of a philosopher, so I look at different traditions, and I gravitate towards, I don't know if this paradox could be understood per se, but I relish in just, deepening these two polar aspects of the unchangeable being, and yet this changing creation, this evolution. I think it's more of a contemplation. I think the more you contemplate it, it reveals different spiritual insights, not necessarily a fixed answer, but somehow I enjoy, but also maybe informs how I behave. So anyways, I'm curious. This is a very specific prompt. I was like, I have this opportunity here.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I fully understand the question, but I just to me, it's like, I mean, where we live here, the people here created baskets that were waterproof. It's the only place in the world, because they had so much time, because there's so much abundance here, and they didn't have to struggle. They had to, what they say is like about 3 hours a day for, sustenance and shelter and things, and the rest of the time they were perfecting their crafts and being together and singing around the fire. To me, that's the paradox. To me, is like how we can live that simply and closely to each other and the earth, and how we have complicated things so much. Oh, we need the newest phone. We need the new, the newest car. We need to upgrade our home. We need to do all these things. So to me, that's the real paradox with the native culture that doesn't. Even though there's, they're woven into the modern world, they still hold that piece of that. Our prayers and our dances. When I go to the dances around here of the Pomo folks, they've been dancing here for thousands of years. These dances and these songs they do, it's like, that brings me to tears. And it's like, wow, they're still here, and they are coming back, in many ways. And I know some young Pomos that have learned the dances and the songs, and it's so, yeah. As far as I think paradox is just inherent to life, right? The yin, the yang, the light, the dark, the grief and the joy. So it's inherent in everything, but it's just like what container do we have to hold it in, right? And to be with our friend who's dying, or be with just whatever it is that's there. So that's the important part for me. So I try to create that container within my own being, that I can walk around as a living prayer, and as I can be in the world of more mainstream, or I can be in the world with the Indigenous people and pay attention to what's going to serve. How can I truly be an ally, and not just someone who wants to take from their culture. So it's...
Yeah, it's a sort of a dance, as you're saying, that always that juxtaposition. And that weaving of the basket, I like that. I think creativity requires that sort of that focus and relaxation simultaneously, and that you have to work at something for a certain time for something to come through.
Yes.
Yeah. We get, in a way, it's a very interesting idea of the modern day consumerism, not to reject it entirely, of we don't need something, but the idea oftentimes is I'm going to create a need, right? And that's the seed behind marketing and stuff, and convince people that, oh, you need this, right? And it has its utility. Apparently we need toothpaste and toothbrush to have teeth that last longer. And that's where the paradox comes in. But when we become mass consumers and we forget the 13.8 billion history, it's like it's always been like that. We had Amazon, and I just click on the Prime. It's Prime Day today. I get all the sales today. And you feel like, thank God this year I didn't do the Amazon Prime Day, but in former years, it's just like you get pulled into this collective vibration.
Yes, it is, and it's so compelling, and so, and we're born into this culture, right? That is, we're being informed of it from the day we're born, and to be able to see it for what it is, and to see the costs to the planet and costs to other people, and to our own souls. It's like, okay, is this in balance, or am I caught on the train and I can't get off, but it's, and we're here at this time for a reason, right? Too. And,
So we're reaching at the end of our conversation, but just when you said that, it reminded me that I wanted to ask you. In our earlier conversation, you had said that with whatever challenges we have, all these paradoxes, it is already perfect, right? And you said, who am I to judge? And so I resonate with that. A friend of mine a while back had shared with me, I think he had a ceremony of some kind, and he had this deep spiritual realization. And I asked him, I was like, what was the spiritual realization? And he said to me, well, I can't explain it to you, but everything is perfect. And not just that, it cannot not be perfect. Mm. And I received that from him because the way that he said it and the ambience that we were in, I believed him. And I will never argue with that. It just is a perfect teaching to receive, right?
I just again just go back to that life force that is perfect, and we are part of that life force. We are a product of that life force, and we have it available to use it at every moment, and so does the rest of creation, right? So there's opposing forces, and there's birth and life and death and rebirth, and I could use the word magic, in some ways, but it's natural magic. It's magic. That's just part of who we are and a part of what everything is, right? And I think it's it really serves to visualize the best for all beings, for me, and to say that the best is happening right now. And there's certain things I don't understand, certain things that feel heartbreaking, but I, again, just return to that. This is life. This is the diverse, the infinite diversity of life, and I'm not meant to understand it all. I'm on this certain place of my evolution, and as a species, we're at this certain place of our evolution, and we can create more suffering for ourselves and others, or we could just say, "Wow, how perfect is this?" Even I'm wanting to, the older we get, the more people are dying. The more people I know, the more people I see dying. It's like, oh, is that imperfect? Is that? Yes, I can feel grief for their passing. I won't see them again in their body, but wow, I got to have that person in my life, and at the end of my life, I want to say, wow, I really have given my best, and and I get to be alive at this time where there seems to be a lot of division between humans, and wow, how beautiful is that, and perfect in its own way. I get to be even more inspired by that, and to find a way to see those others as my brothers and sisters, and rather than they're wrong or they're bad or they're evil. But thank you for testing me in this way. Thank you for challenging me. Thank you for giving me a new way to be curious, and a new way to be loving, a new way to perfection, it just is, and I can dance with it in infinite ways, and I want to dance from it from a place that I am perfection and you are perfection, and even this consumer culture we live in is perfection in its own way, and I've got a lot to learn as an elder, and as an elder in training,
mm-hmm.
too, because I still have my judgments and my anger and my, my heartbreak around things. But then I return to that place of prayer and that place of gratitude, right? That's a part of it too. So gratitude, I get to be alive at this time. We get to be alive at this time. And, I feel the universe smiling, when I really let go of my stories. I feel the universe smiling on us and all beings, and I want to give that smile back.
Yeah.
And through my actions and my words and my thoughts and my gratitude. So grateful for you to invite me here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a real joy. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kanan. Yes, likewise. It feels like a gift and a blessing to me, and again to all beings. Can I end with the chorus of a song I wrote?
Yeah, please. That'll be lovely.
It goes like this: We are creating a world where our people are loved. We are creating a world no longer run by fear. We are creating a world where all beings are held with the sacredness of a newborn child.